Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity for us to share our work. So I think I'm going to bring a different type of discourse today, and I hope you can help me to complete what we are trying to debate here. So our work is about understanding the barriers to adaptation to summer heat among the elderly population in Lisbon. This is a pilot study that we conducted. We are a wider team, not only myself. And just to bring out the motivation, it was a long slide and I tried to cut it short, but we all know the relevance of heat waves and the heat-associated mortality. In Portugal, it has been roughly 2,000 extra deaths in the 2003 heat wave. We all know about the social determinants of health, especially the aging, and this is what brings us today in this session. Very interesting, there's some studies advanced that in Portugal will probably be the fourth most aged country in the world. That's quite stunning. In several climate change adaptation plans that we have conducted in Portugal, the adaptation to heat events, it was considered a priority. And several studies have conducted narratives about heat-related impacts, and they mention contextual factors, attitudes, values. And just to try to sum up, in Portugal, almost 36% of those residents reported they could not keep their home comfortably cool during summer. Well, we don't need to go on, but having this in back of our mind, we applied 2 years ago to our National Foundation of Science, and we trying to explore which determinants, which barriers those vulnerable people have when they try to adapt. So this is why I think that we are bringing a new type of discourse in this room, is that we would like to listen to the people and try to understand which motivation or barriers are at the individual scale. So we've conducted a pilot study, a really small pilot study. We've been working in a parish in the north of Lisbon, Portugal. We've chosen these parishes because the building types are the same. They have the same age, the same facades, the same height, the same materials. They are located within the same climatope in Lisbon. And we installed several data loggers on the outside, outdoors. We also installed data loggers in 20 dwellings, and we've conducted a 9-week follow-up study to the residents, and we applied the mental health inventory, the quality of life inventory, the Pittsburgh sleeping. Well, it was a long battery of follow-up information from our follow-up, and we've conducted individual face-to-face in-depth interviews. And those are signaled in red because this is what brings us here today. Just to make a long story short, this is not what I'm going to talk today, but just to mention what are the main results of our study. So most of the residents, at least in Portugal, they don't really rely much on air conditioning. They rely on passive cooling measurements, like they close their blinds and they open the windows to provoke natural ventilation. What we obviously observed and everyone is expecting, during daytime, houses provide a sheltering effect during heat in Lisbon, but at the nighttime it can be more warmer than outside. But what we found is during the summer of 2022, sorry I didn't mention that, we found that the accumulated different temperatures at nighttime did not compensate the cooling effect during daytime. So they are gaining temperature over the summer. Our follow-up study didn't find any relationship with the mental health inventory, the 5 questions. Maybe we needed to have a wider period. I'll keep it for another presentation, that one. And what we did find is that the sleeping quality showed a high sign of degradation, and we also find that the very hot days, they are statistically and very strongly associated with daily activities like cooking, reading, working the computer. So it just gives us signs of some heat burden within the indoor environment. our main focus and what brings us today is to try to talk to people, understand which narratives were behind the adaptation process. So we conducted interviews. It was intentional criteria. We had only 12 interviews, but we reached actually our saturation point. We conducted the interviews to the elderly and very elderly population. So interviews were recorded, transcribed by 2 interviewers, and we had a triangulation, open coding, and we used Max KDA for this. So 4 main themes emerged from our study. And I'll go to one by one. And the first one is the perception of heat-related risk. And just to cut it in short, people feel the heat, but very interesting how the elderly report the heat. And most of them report it as an inevitability. They resist the heat with little control. The first code said, oh, it's normal, although some summers are moderate, summers are not all the same, depends on the seasons, and we have to put up with it. We can't do anything, we are not in charge. This is quite a powerful sentence. We are not in charge, so we need to hang on. And actually, some people mention that they need to hang on, and we have to go through this. So we're just keeping alive, hanging on to the heat. Another dimension that comes up is the efficiency of early warnings within this population. This is kind of strong message that we would like to leave here today. Some people say that, oh, if the hot days are coming, like 40 degrees, and everyone comes out screaming, it's coming a strong heat event of 40 degrees, to me that's... So they try to minimize the role of heat events, and they say, no, I don't do usual, I don't do anything different. We are not control of anything. Again, the same type of expressions that people use. So, it's interesting, some people say they listen to the meteorological news because they want to know how to dress, but not necessarily to adapt to it. Another interesting dimension that we are trying to isolate is the feeling in control of the situation. And in many interviews, people just mention, I think I do enough. And remember, maybe that's not so objective when we look at the options that people mentioned. But they think they don't need to do much more in terms of indoor. I do what I can, I use the situation pretty well. It's more or less bearable. So people feel that they have control with the situation indoor, and probably they do, but that's what we are trying to analyze. And then the final dimension that we would like to isolate is that they mention the structural conditions of the buildings. Obviously, that's what we expect. The north side is more protected than the south side. For the north, thank you. Then, very interesting, the negative beliefs about air conditioning came up, like we don't use that type of device because it's bad for your health, so no one should use it. People have negative beliefs concerning air conditioning, and very interesting again, at the given age, they mention the intertemporal decisions. So yeah, I know I could do more, but not with my age. So I'm not changing my house, I'm not changing to double glazed windows, I'm not doing it, not at my age. So maybe that's something that's too late in my life to do. And this dimension, I don't think we talk much about. And the positive beliefs of what it's already being done. So we already open the windows at daytime and then we close it. Wherever people use this strategy, they feel they do enough. So just to sum up and just to bring the discussion, obviously this is a quite small study, but it's just a different type of approach that we would like to bring in. And we are quite interested in analyzing further the narrative analysis. We actually believe it's a very powerful tool to understand thermal maladaptation among vulnerable groups. We think that probably there are some contrasting concepts, like for instance, being in control of the situation and perceiving the risk of being exposed to heat, and also the negative beliefs. This is quite surprising for us. The negative beliefs concerning heat or the adaptation are less centered in the income dimension. We were expecting to see energy poverty coming up, like air conditioning, it's too expensive. And that's not quite the type of discourse that we saw. And this makes us think about the efficiency of early warning and about the adaptive strategies that we promote. And just to sum up, this is my last slide. We would like to just to think together and to contribute to the discussion. We have been in a conference where we will talk pretty much about vulnerable population, about heat exposure, about heat maps, about identifying the vulnerable, and we even report that we should have tailor-made strategies. We don't know much about those, and maybe we need to step forward and debate about what tailor-made strategies are. And this is our contribution. Thank you.
We will just take one question.
So I'm quite interested in the finding that the older people think the air conditioners could have some negative health impacts for them. So I'm quite interested in what are the super negative impacts of the air conditioners could bring to them, and why would they think it is so? And I have a second question. Is that what did they think that from the interviews the community or the government could help them, because they think that they are not in the position that they could control anything to help the hot weather situation. So what do they expect people could do helpful things for them?
Let me go to the second question first.
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite. People feel they don't need help. They feel that they do enough. The question about heat is they just have to hang on to something that usually happens every year. So it's like they are accommodated to the situation and not necessarily urging for help. And this is surprising for us. And maybe that's the thing that we need to think about, early warning systems with the directed to vulnerable people like the aging population. The first question, it's quite interesting to see, at least in Portugal and for our sample area, there's a general negative association with air conditioning concerning the quality of the air that people breathe. I usually end up my presentations with a tag someone wrote in a wall in Portuguese. That's why I didn't bring it. Air conditioning kills people. So there's a negative belief, a general negative belief that it's not necessarily harming the planet, because in terms of warming, global warming, but it's bad for your health.
Thank you so much. So that brings us to the end of the session, and we believe you still have a lot